Josh, say something really loud.
Something really loud.
Thank you. I couldn't do my hey. So
Hey! Oh!
no. Hey, it's balcony time.
We're here.
Oh, I had a throat tickle too. As soon as you said noise floor, I had to make a.
I know it happens to me. Dude, it happens to me all the time, and I know that I'm opening, so I'm like, that's why sometimes it's like 7 seconds of silence because I'm like, go away.
Yeah.
Do a couple hard swallows.
Who,
So,
who is the biggest consumer industry-wise of glitter?
I bet you that nobody
Strippers.
knows that.
This was like a big drama thing,
Strippers.
controversy, not even close,
Kindergarten teachers.
over like the last year. And there's some ideas tossed around on Reddit, and then apparently
Fucking YouTube pranksters.
you're not thinking big scale enough.
Yeah.
Way bigger.
Are you telling me big strippers are out?
It's either the auto industry or I said either. I didn't have an idea for the second one or any further.
You're close. Turns out it's the fucking boat industry.
I
Think
almost said
about
boat.
Boats.
Yes.
Every boat
Yeah.
is got glitter in the paint.
Damn it.
And when this came out, it got dramatic because the glitter companies wouldn't say who their biggest
Yeah.
fucking
That's why I
consumer
said
is.
I bet you they don't say, right?
But yeah, you think of like
They're ruining the ocean with herpes.
well, it's oceans and lakes and whatnot. But you think about boats, all that glitter in the paint, like they're
Gotta
probably
go somewhere.
yeah,
All that glitters
the
is
largest
gold.
consumer of glitter.
Yeah.
Only shooting
No, so that was like my
Boats and hose.
Boats and hoes.
Okay,
So-
I correct my stance.
that was
job,
my gut reaction was boats. I was
Yeah.
like, what
Yep.
does it was boats? And I was like, nah, the auto
All
industry
strippers
has to be
are hoes.
way bigger, right?
Yeah.
Because there's usually some kind of glitter fleck in paint.
Not.
That's true. You know what? I
Not
guess it's
as
not as
much as in
popular.
boats,
I guess it's not as popular as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
used to be
just
a
not.
thing.
Yeah, you're right. Because I'm thinking about like all the last cars that I've had, and it's only my older ones that ever had glitter in the paint.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Missed opportunity. I could have been right.
could have been.
It could have been my second choice too, but I was like, nah, there's no way.
When's the last time you guys used glitter?
Well, we talked about me spackling my fucking bathtub with glitter, or just before the podcast. I have an extreme aversion to glitter now, because it got stuck in the pores of my fucking bathtub
Yeah.
for years. It took
Like
me
its own boat.
It
but
took me
backwards.
actual years of because I would scrub the bejesus out of it. I have used paint thinner. I've used bleach, CLR. I've used like so many different chemicals on it
Need
that
a physical abrasive.
The thing is
the last time I came in contact with glitter.
so I've used not steel wool, but it's the same. It's the like
Similar.
similar. It's the stuff that you use on dishes, right? It's the really abrasive metal stuff.
Iron cotton.
That's the one. I've used the green scrub pads. But I've
Did you try Mr. Clean's magic eraser?
I did. I have a pack of 100 of 100 magic erasers because I bought it specifically for my tub. And the only thing that worked for it was
Tub acid.
paint thinner and using a fucking drill with a brush attachment for like an hour. I'm not kidding you. I went through a full battery on a cordless drill.
Funnily enough, that's how you get rid of real herpes. Too.
Just
It's a drill with a brush attachment and paint thinner.
so yeah.
That'll
Now
take the herpes right off.
that wasn't necessarily the glitter's fault. That's because I used spray glue to get it. We had a New
yeah,
Year's Eve
that'll
party
do it.
where the theme was glitters and sparkles or something like that. The one we had over at Colin and Alex's. Oh, that was fun.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just.
So
mood.
So I did a light coating of spray glue, shitloads of glitter, just threw it at my hat, then another light coating, but I did that in my bathtub.
Yep.
Now, of course, with any costume idea that I have, I do it last minute. So I was doing this like 15 minutes before we're supposed to be at Colin and Alex's for New Year's Eve. So I was like, fuck it, I'll leave this mess for when I get home. Well,
Which is 5 days later.
I had piles, like it was piled up in a ring around like a hat-shaped ring, and it was cutting my fucking feet as I'm trying to take a
geez.
shower.
Glitter glass.
That was
know,
garbage.
Side note, you said iron cotton as a stand-in for glitter, and it reminded me, I went down a rabbit hole today on lumberjacks. And if you go to Lumberjack Wikipedia, the term lumberjack, where it comes from a letter to some place. And I fucking love this passage. So, my misfortunes have been brought upon me chiefly by an incorrigible, though perhaps useful, race of mortals called lumberjacks, whom, however, I would name the Cossacks of Canada, who, having been reared among the oaks and pines of the wild forest, have never been subjected to the salutary restraint of laws. The Cossacks of... Can you imagine we called lumberjacks Canadian Cossacks?
I'm going to now.
This guy defines lumberjacks like some wild aldermen that live out like outside of civilization.
I mean,
which kind of is how they were
true,
back then.
yeah.
But I just love the way he described lumberjacks. Incorrigible, though perhaps useful. Right?
I mean, the Russian czars found Cossacks very incorrigible and useful.
Yeah.
right up until the end.
Yeah, right up until they were not so useful.
They also went on a train ride. It did not end well for the Romanovs.
J.K. Rowling would have loved it.
She probably would have, weirdly enough.
So, guys, I want to talk about our D&D campaign because I have been fucking fiending.
I am so
you guys are
bummed
ready.
So we haven't played in a couple of because you know sickness and
Christmas and
Christmas
sickness,
Christmas being on a Sunday.
Yeah, what the fuck? That's a D&D night, bitch.
Also, like a regular day off already. Like, where's my fucking extra day off, Christmas?
Come on, Jesus. Choose a fucking day. Yeah. You know what I mean? All right?
Birthday should always just be fucking Monday.
Yeah.
You know?
It's an unfortunate but true stereotype. The holidays kill campaigns.
Yeah.
You really have to be careful because it's very easy for weeks to go by, sickness and holiday stuff. So, yeah, we will hop back into it for sure, though.
So I want to talk not just about like the potential of like we alluded to it a little bit in Video Game Tango, but because that's I'll talk about it later.
Words.
I want to talk all about all this stuff, and it all wants to come out at once. So should we give our audience just like a little bit of a history of like the campaign so far?
Yeah,
if you want.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it from you guys.
Okay, so
see what you remember. It tells me what you.
So essentially, Nick has adapted because Die Vecna Die is the source material, right? Like loosely, at least.
That was the original plan. The campaign now is just wholesale cloth. I've just made it up.
Okay.
Except for the dungeon. The dungeon, the something grottos. That's old school Essentials book. Yeah.
Okay. So it's because
the concept was
the concept from yeah. And that came from the popularity of Vecna and Stranger Things, and you know
Josh bringing up the idea that he'd love to do a Vecna.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we're going to do a Vecna campaign, and it has been probably I think this has been my favorite campaign ever, and
great to hear.
We three have been probably the biggest. Well, not me in more recent years, but like the mainstays for our core D&D group, right? Like. We've participated in most of the D&D campaigns. Again, not me in more recent years, but I'd say like
I play a lot of D&D.
Over time, I've played in most of the D&D campaigns that we've ever played in. You know, less so in our adult years, but especially when we were in our teens and early 20s. And yeah, we've played campaigns together. We've played it's probably over 100 campaigns.
I was gonna say at least dozens that we played together.
Like, I have no idea.
Well, I mean,
we lost track,
especially with the way we used to be, where like we'd somebody would get a nugget of an idea, and it's time to do a new campaign. Like we would re-roll characters, several,
or sometimes just bring that new character in to the thing. You know, like our same old character. You know,
we
got legacy characters.
I mean, at the end of the day, we've been playing. I mean, you guys as players, you've been playing off and on for almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Like we've been going. We used to go down to Beyond Comics on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to go play D&D. And we are probably the chorus of the group, followed by our friend Colin, friend of the show. He's been on the podcast a couple times.
Friend of the pod.
And then we've had some other people that have been off and on, but you know, we've had some other mainstays like Russ. Justin's been on the podcast before. You guys know them. We have an old friend, Dorian, who used to play with us like 3 times a week.
In the last recent years, Brian has been
in quite a few of the campaigns.
He brings, boy, does he bring an element of something. He brings a little something.
He brings a little. He brings.
He is the Canadian Cossack of our incorrigible, but sometimes useful.
Yes, God, that's so apt.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's our history in D&D. I just wanted to bring that up because this is, I think, my favorite D&D campaign to date, and I've played a lot of D&D, and that includes we've done classic AD&D, we've done third edition. That's where we started was third edition.
On third edition. Yeah.
3.5. We've done Pathfinder, we've done a lot of different, not just Dungeons and Dragons, but other tabletop games.
Ass.
Yeah, but we did 4th edition, 5th edition. We've run a lot of campaigns throughout the years, and this I think is, like, I think because we've played a lot of good campaigns, but this is probably my favorite, unless I'm forgetting one.
Well, no, you're just getting to come at it from a unique perspective because it's been, if I had to guess, like roughly 10 years since you last really played D&D.
No,
I think you kind of missed
like
most
7, 8.
of
probably 7, 8
edition stuff.
Yeah.
And you missed pretty much all the 5th edition stuff. So yeah,
I played quite a bit of 5th edition. I played 4th and 5th. I didn't start going away until after 5th was out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been chugging along, and D&D's, it's my thing. I mean, there isn't a day that doesn't go by where I'm reading about either, DMing stuff or dice probabilities or new dungeons or fucking stuff.
Oh, you're deep in the sauce.
Yeah, I'm deep in the sauce.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, up until I don't know, last 5-ish years, I was the DM.
Yeah, the primary DM.
And then thankfully Josh has hopped on board and he has become.
I try.
Fantastic job. You're doing really good. I mean, you have to put up with me, who very rarely gets to play. What I do, I go off the fucking wall. And then you also have, other players are Canadian Cossacks in the group. So yeah, being able to jump back in after taking a hiatus.
I don't think it's just that. I really think
I'm just saying it's a unique perspective.
Sure. Yeah. No, they're like, I've had campaigns where I looked forward to playing some more, but it was more like, even with board games, the most exciting thing to me is getting the boys together and doing a little something, right?
Sure.
So it's been more than that. I have been like, it's taken up brain space, much like it probably does you. And like, what happens next? What do I want to do with my character? Mm-hmm. What are the variables that I'm going to get from my party members, and how do I work around those?
So I'm thinking about generally Saturday evening and Sunday.
Yeah,
like most of the days, like, oh man, what are we doing tonight?
Night, naughty. So there.
Night.
It's a little bit different. I'm nearly addicted to this campaign. Where like in the shower today, all I was thinking about was I need to give my character, I really need to write out a character backstory, like a really in-depth one. And in order to do that, I need to get together with Nick because we need to talk about maps. Like where do I exist on the map before right? Squanch's Hollow, which is a name that we've decided where my dwarf hails from. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's been on my mind a lot, especially the last couple of days, was I need to get this written out. It needs to be understood. That way, not just for fluff or whatever, but so the other characters in our campaign know about it, right? Like, it's important to know that backstory, especially because what we're doing is really impacting how where the campaign goes. Mm-hmm. Like, so for instance, so let's give a little bit of backstory here. So we're playing a campaign based around finding and killing Vecna. At this point, we don't even know if Vecna is real or alive or just something more legend.
Honestly, I feel I feel like we're maybe have already accidentally done that. That's because we when we started, it was like a bad dude doing shit in the forest, and that's who we of course all as avid, D&D fans know who the fuck Vecna is.
Yeah.
But like we're playing with that character mindset where it's like, right, I mean, this is a bad dude who's got some culty fellows. So like we've taken down some culty motherfuckers, I feel like we're
let's get specific.
Yeah.
So we're a band of adventurers that met in a town. What's the town called?
Tarbuck.
Tarbuck. So we meet in a place called Tarbuck. My cleric being kind of the leader, the impromptu leader. I was the one that put out signs looking for help and trying to find and kill Vecna.
I mean, I would say you're the leader because we joined your thing.
Yeah.
So you're the.
But everybody, I think, has also been like a leader in their own regards.
Mm-hmm.
Like we trust each other in this campaign to do what the character does. Right.
We've survived. Yeah, especially now. Like in the beginning, it was kind of like a little thing. But yeah, we're very much a group now, which I enjoy.
So the basics are we get all prepared. We're in this town called Tarbuck. And the first couple sessions take place in town. We're getting to know a couple of the townsfolk and making a couple friends and mostly getting our adventuring gear together and meeting each other for the first time. A couple campaigns in, and we decide that we're going to go to the grotto, what's been known as the grotto. And it's in the middle of the woods called the Almond Wood.
Yeah, it's where our mysteries kind of led, because everybody was kind of doing an investigatey thing. And so kind of several signs pointed towards the grotto.
Yeah, so we had to find out where we're headed first. So yeah, we spent some time in town, and it turns out the townsfolk have been noticing that game has been slowly disappearing. The forest doesn't seem alive the way it used to be. It's quiet and things don't feel right. So the first thing we decide to do is check out this grotto, which is supposed to be like magical in nature. People that have been there and people that have experienced it, and the stories told by people that have supposedly been to the grotto.
It's at the very least a weird, dangerous place.
Yeah. And that's how it's understood. And we find out that members of Kingsguard from a kingdom, one of the nearest large kingdom.
The capital.
The capital, yeah.
Quote unquote.
Have gone seeking cultists. And we don't know exactly what their motives are at this point, but we understand that they're trying to track down cultists. And it looks like, based on what we've seen as far as tracks and being able to trail these people, that they're headed in the direction that we were told the grotto's in. And eventually we do make it to the grotto, where we meet our friend MG, the master of the glade, who is a leprechaun.
We had
fun little guy.
A fun guy. We had some fun interactions with him.
Yeah.
Almost got him killed.
Yeah, super hesitant to enter the dungeon because there is a dungeon, like a very apparent dungeon, essentially right in the like smack dab in the middle of this grotto, of this like super magical, middle of the forest grotto. So at this point, Brian hasn't joined us. The day he joins us is the day we decide that we're gonna go down in the dungeon. So sweaty halfling shows up in full plate, having like essentially chased us the last 3 days, trying to catch up to us, and say, "Hey, I saw the signs you had in town. I want to join you guys on your adventure." For seemingly no reason other than to find out who's stolen his wine, and that's what we know of this guy.
Yep, he's a fucking halfling
the
with
cultist.
9 kids.
Yeah. Yep.
Little Millie has 1 leg.
Yeah.
And he's looking for his wine. And like he feels like these cultists may have taken his wine, and that's what he's doing here. And it's a lot of fun. And his first so what I like about this campaign, real like now that we're
let's continue to give history, and I'll let you chime in, but let's get them caught up a little bit here.
Right,
and
so
a short summary of what's happened.
The halfling shows up a few days into us getting our gear and finally making it to the grotto. And so we finally decide to go down. We see these slippery ass steps, and the halfling immediately falls down them and almost dies because it's a small man in a tin can tumbling down stairs and then into a pool where he's in, did I mention full plate?
I did, yeah.
So he's drowning.
From a gameplay perspective, that sounds awful and boring and horrible, but that will be explained later why he almost died from going downstairs.
So slippery steps because there is a waterfall leading, like, so the dungeon entrance is in the ground, and it's essentially like a bricked off
it's just a little cave mouth.
Yeah, a cave mouth.
A creek runs into.
And there's winding stairs that go down to the bottom of this cave. There's a waterfall here. We assume that the stairs are slick. We all decide we're gonna take it slow going, except for the halfling who doesn't, ends up nearly drowning and nearly dying. Without giving too much detail, because there's a lot of stuff going on in this dungeon, we get only a few rooms into this dungeon before we're like near death and looking at like, hey, maybe this is a little bit too much for us right now. Let's come back. Let's gather ourselves, come back in a few days after a few days rest, right? We go back to town. We continue to make friends. We continue to carouse with the townsfolk. And begin to get to know people a little bit better. Now, what is it? Question real quick. Was this the time that Brug decided to join us?
Yeah. So, well, in the first dungeon, the first time we went into the dungeon, we actually lost one of our party members. Clarence Point fell in battle.
Thrashed by a troglodyte.
Thrashed by a fucking lizard man, stinky lizard man. And so he died. So we needed a new, quote unquote, meat shield. And so when we went back to town, that was part of the reason we left.
I think more important. I think we're missing an important part here. Is we did find the leader of the knights that had come down here.
That's true. Also, we had found and rescued the leader of the knights and one of the members of her party that was still alive.
Who we found later.
Right. And then Clarence died. So we had to go back to town to resupply and to get our friend's body.
We killed a couple drogs, but we also killed a fucking doppelganger.
Yep.
Super cool. At level 1, we killed a doppelganger, and only one of us died.
I mean, honestly, I call that a win.
Odds. Yeah.
I call that a win. So we make it back to town, and a little bit of shit goes down. You lost your holy symbol.
Yeah.
Clarence died in the dungeon, so we just threw him in the woods. Wolves are
yeah, pretty much. Andy had to be written out anyways. We had an additional party member with us. Our friend Andy, he's been on the podcast before. He had to be written out. His, life changed, life happened. Work stuff happened. Wasn't able to play anymore, so we had to write him out anyways.
So but he did die. So then we needed a new party member, and that's when the local tavern owner and everybody's favorite half orc, Brug, joined our party. Now we had been a fan of Brug because we had been staying at his tavern as our headquarters so far in the town there. It's kind of like the first place we met up. So he winds up joining us because not to give a little bit away here. The cook went down. He got shot, bonked his head, and then so with us trying to help the cook and everything, the neat sword above the bar was stolen, and that's when we find out this sword is more than meets the eye.
First of all, I love your abridged version of the summary of our campaign.
I hope you never have to summarize something under pain of torture.
Because
I missed some things. I think
Brug's
it's fine. It's fun to listen to.
Brug's cook is knocked out by what's it called? A dart to the neck.
A Camino saber dart.
Clearly, he's been targeted for some reason. We're trying to find out that reason. Coming back to the Rook, which is the bar that Brug owns, we realize that his sword is missing from the wall. Well, he realizes very quickly that his sword is missing from the wall. He relays us the importance of the sword and why it existed. As far as why it was in his possession. So this sword, while he had been adventuring previously in the past, well before our campaign started, he came into possession of this sword, and this sword is intelligent in that it speaks to him, and it's also got some kind of power suggestion, and he feels that it's of like an extreme, maybe even prime evil. So he relays us the importance of the sword and its disappearance being very important to him, and we need to recover this artifact. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
This is when he
Powerful
decides to join the party because he thinks that maybe it's cultist doings and we need to go back into this dungeon and recover his sword. At least those are his thoughts. Is the only reason this sword has disappeared is because of cultists. That's what he surmises. So we go back into the dungeon.
Important tidbit of information. We know that there's a sweaty halfling in full plate. We also, at this point, have an ugly rogue who got his face chewed off by a bear.
Yeah.
Dwarven cleric, by the way, over here, dwarven cleric. And I am a wizard of sorts.
Yes. So those are our characters, yes. So we decide we're going to make the dangerous trek back to...
I track the sword via magic.
Yes.
Back to the grotto.
Back to the grotto. That's right. We are pulling this out from memory. So, and this has been over, I don't know, we've probably done like 20 sessions so far.
Yeah, we've it's been stretched out over a number of months.
20.
So
I mean, yeah, we've been like we're getting close to like level 4 in this campaign, which is crazy.
And we're so like the whole point of this campaign is that it's darker.
And Nick, feel free to jump in.
I was just waiting for you guys to catch up to the point. It's interesting to hear
it's
what you
grittier.
remember.
It's not necessarily what we remember.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just highlight important points because we've already been summarizing this for 20 minutes.
So, as the DM, here's been my idea with the campaign. I was raised in the 3rd edition environment where there was a rule for everything.
Yeah.
And that was the assumption, the default. And for lighter weight games, when I did encounter them, they confused me in how little control you had over things, right? And then for a long time, I didn't like them. And then you get older, your tastes change. You have a hobby you're super deep into for decades and decades. I got more into them, and we played other games. We played Blades in the Dark, and we played, Pathfinder's essentially 3rd edition. But I personally own 30 hardbacks of different tabletop systems and hundreds of digital versions. And, I've read quite a bit of them. So over time, my tastes have changed. And with 5th edition coming out, 5th edition is like, to me, that I've had a lot of time with it. It is a tease of what could be a really good system in my personal preference. And it's close enough, but also awful enough for a lot of reasons that it drives me to want to do something different. It's like you get into a hobby or you find something, you're like, I like the concept here, but it's done so differently or poorly that I really want to make my own to, do it better. So when it came to this, we are running this in essentially a quasi old school Essentials system. Old school Essentials is essentially a surface level rework of the original versions of D&D, how they used to play back in the 80s and so on, where the point of playing...
The Gygax generation.
Yeah, Gygax, AD&D, First D, Blackmore, all that stuff. They played for a very different reason and to very different purposes, and how you played and the intention of what you were doing it's night and day different than how people play now, And while I'm doing other things, this campaign was mostly kind of a break for me and also a little bit of a chance to flex these ideas of defining what I like about the OSR or OSE gameplay. Because when it comes down to me as a DM, I've gone from frustrated that the players aren't doing what I want them to do. When I was younger, didn't know better, I'd write stories and then it doesn't turn out that way, to knowing that I don't really have control over the system and doing whatever, to realizing that I can find entertainment myself as a player in the game if I find the things that, if I change what it is that I want to like about the game, right? Because when it comes to you guys as players, there's a phrase used like pillars in a gameplay, and normally it's referred to like it works in video games too. Pillars of combat, pillars of exploration, of social stuff, of drama, of intrigue, right? So if you take that on a meta level to what does an individual real life player enjoy, you have the pillars of triumph and prowess and agency and discovery and narrative, and what each individual person likes. I can kind of roll that in. And the last, playing the third edition stuff, something that I really, really, really like is agency and narrative, right? In no other hobby do you really get to tell a story and have so much control over what happens. Control in the sense that your actions have consequences, maybe not the ones you want, but there's really no way to experience that, I think, in any other form of entertainment, unless you're just free form storytelling. But then again, the moment you need rules, now you're playing a tabletop game. Right?
Yeah, essentially.
So with this kind of a system, I have learned that my DMing style is 90% ad hoc. Most of the time, the day before a session, I will literally just think about it for 3 to 4 hours. I won't even write anything down. And I just run through my head like what we've done, things to touch on, and then a lot of it just flows out of gameplay. Does that take away player agency because there's things not set in stone? That's a whole conversation to have. But when you have a nascent game like this, it's new and we're coming back and we're trying something new, everything's just touchstone. So, Tarbucks, it's just a stand-in for a place for there to be a village.
Yeah.
Right. The Grottos is just a dungeon.
Yeah, it's
the
a place
Evil
for a dungeon.
Sword, in my head, all of 30 seconds, I need a MacGuffin, the One Ring. So far, if you look at the sword, it's an evil power, it speaks to a guy, suggestion powers, he put it away because it was dangerous. Like, this sword may become something else because we haven't had a chance to interact with it yet.
Yeah.
It's in a quantum state. But you just start with these little touchstones. And knowing that we were going to be playing this older version of D&D, I needed to find a kind of a strength level of how hard to lay into you guys the tenets of old school playing is.
Yeah.
Which is, this is not a vessel for power fantasy. This isn't Marvel. Those games exist and they're perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But this is about, I hate to use the fucking phrase, this is the Dark Souls of tabletop
Yeah.
games, right?
And as a player, especially me, I think, have begun to understand the consequences of my actions.
Yeah.
Especially, we've had 2 character deaths in the story so far. 3. I mean, if we're to include our NPC Brug.
Yeah.
Very pivotal to the story. Brug is now dead. Right. We have lost a lead, and a massive help. So, I feel like while it hasn't been absolutely brutal, you can play the game and you can succeed. Your actions there are real consequences for your actions, and your actions really need to be thought through before they're acted upon.
Definitely brutal comparatively to the campaigns like that we've played recently.
Yeah.
That we've ran recently.
Well, especially compared to combat focused campaigns.
Exactly, because recently,
3-4 fights over the last 15, 20 seconds.
Oh yeah, no, it's
we've had maybe.
I would put the troglodytes and the doppelganger as one.
Then there's two different. There was two different those. The skeletons I wouldn't count as a fight.
You only don't count them as a fight because you guys got lucky.
Yeah.
They could have easily have killed you.
Right.
That's fair. But we fucking steamrolled those dudes with a cleric.
Good luck. You had good dice rolls.
Yeah, good dice rolls.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But
they weren't a huge threat as the doppelganger was, but in these old school games, it just combat is supposed to be dangerous.
The halfling described poorly going down the stairs. He's like, well, I'm hitting it with a lot of energy and I'm going down them stairs. And it's like, okay, well, roll. That's a roll now because I told you it was wet and slippery and you told me you're hitting it with energy. So
that was really important. I had to kind of use him as
that's a reinforcing
because not only is it more important for me to reinforce these things to Brian because 10% 50% of what you say gets into his head and the rest floats
Yeah.
somewhere else. But I wanted to reinforce from the get-go that, like, it's not that I'm trying to take your stuff said out of character and use it in game so much as, like, I want you to know that every choice you make, every action you do is going to have a good, a bad, or neutral consequence. And you can't get away from it.
Yeah.
You know?
I explained something poorly and got Brug killed.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, like I took information that was given to me as a character and then told the rest of my party members something
You paraphrased
different.
it.
I paraphrased it. It was
Yeah.
different than what I was told.
Yeah.
And it got a guy killed. So like they're like it you know.
So, yeah, I mean, I know that you talking about you're really wanting to cement, like, where you're from and these kinds of things. And I would like to do that. I traditionally, I have learned over time not to do that.
Yeah.
Because it is very easy as a DM
True.
to make content that just never gets used.
Right.
Right. And I had to know this campaign was going to get off the ground. and
That's
people were
why
gonna like it.
Yeah.
And what's nice about these is, and we're adults, is, like, at any time we can just be like, okay, well, let's do it. Like, at any point, this stuff doesn't have to be set in stone.
Sure.
You know, Tarbuck's now kind of Tarbuck,
Yeah.
but, like, there's still a lot of NPCs that you haven't met that you might never meet, or that I could change a little bit. And
So
yeah,
I want to talk about that. So let's, previously we've had campaigns that didn't last more than a session. And then I would say our average campaign lasts like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
and it's usually because there's a disconnect between what I wanted out of the game
Yeah.
and what you guys are bringing to the table. You guys wanted X and I wanted Y,
Right.
and we weren't knowledgeable enough about communication in tabletop games to find a middle ground.
Yeah. And then there's other stuff, there's the life that gets in the way and whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, we don't get too many sessions into a D&D campaign before we maybe even move on to the next one, which sometimes just happens because somebody has an idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that idea sounds
That was
awesome.
really
Well, why don't we
common
do that
back
instead?
then,
Yeah. That used to happen all the time. And that was my going into this, like our first, handful of sessions was like, okay, kind of fiddle fart around. I am a dwarf cleric. I hail from this place. Loose backstory. You don't need to know. It's really unimportant. But we have been playing long enough at this point that a backstory seems really appropriate and something that is set in stone. And when I say set in stone, I mean something that's just fleshed out, right? Something that we can pull from in this story. Because,
Also
it's been asked, like, who is your god? And I honestly had not chosen one, which is quintessential. That it's necessary as a cleric in Dungeons and Dragons to have a deity that you worship. That's where your powers derive from, right?
Yeah.
And so up until now, I have been generic cleric number one.
And I did that on purpose. I'm going to let you talk in a second, Josh, but specifically in old school style of play, you should not expect any given first level character to survive.
Yeah.
And I don't run exactly that way. I'm not going to make dungeons that are meat grinders.
Yeah.
I might sometimes.
Sure.
But you guys are going to have knowledge of that.
Yeah.
Right? My goal and the excitement I get is once you guys have, you're doing a good job and you get better and better learning about how to play in these old school games. I want to bridge this gap between the narrative, social, plot-driven stuff we're used to in 5th edition and more modern gaming with the amount of agency and consequences that you can get in old school play.
And I think
that's really
as
my
we've gone
goal.
on, that balance has gotten better.
So being able to start with a blank sheet, the player was as important as the character themselves in old play.
Yeah.
You had to physically think your way out of puzzles or solve problems with information that your character might not necessarily have.
Yeah.
And I lean a little bit away from that and more towards what is your character capable of.
Yeah.
Like you guys rolling under your stat for a lot of these things. It's not a thing in old school. Like you would just tell me what you would do and be like a random D20 roll, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to provide it some more structure. But before I get going too long, you were going to say something.
So I went into this knowing we were getting something grittier because, like is it 5th edition? Like even when there's like I think I remember sayings like because I thought I was at 0 hit points and I was like, well, I'm unconscious, and you're like, why are you unconscious? And it's like, well, I hit zero. I think I hit 0 hit points here. And it's like, oh, you're dead.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what? That's not. I was like, oh, fuck, shit. I completely forgot about that. So, like, my character, I've just actually recently decided he's lived long enough that he's earned a background.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah,
Like,
that's how I'm feeling.
Like, until then, it was like, I'm a wizard from a big city.
Yeah.
I'm the, I'm a dude from big city. But now I want to, and like, over time, due to my poor stats, I've added some role playing to him. So
And it's all emerged out of that.
and it has really
You
emerged.
didn't
And
have to create it.
this is I also agree with Andy. It's one of my, at least in recent memory, one of my favorite campaigns, because a lot of times we just wind up, and like, we're still kind of murder hobos. Don't get me wrong.
We've only done 2 murders.
You've only done
4 murders.
We just, I get
blamed
it,
for a fifth.
but
Yeah.
but we're not that standard, like, murder, loot.
Yeah, we're not going
It's
down
like-
until dungeon level 1, opening up a room, clearing its goblins, and then going into room 2,
And,
clearing an ogre,
it's,
right? Yeah.
It feels more like a mechanism for storytelling
Yeah.
and like character interaction.
Yeah, and just thought.
And it's just like, it doesn't have that power gamey feel. And I'm not a big fan of power gaming. Like, but that's, and if you are a fan of power gaming, that's, you do you, boo. That's what D&D is about.
You can
And-
like Iron Man and
And that's sometimes dope to do.
Yeah, I like having a really powerful character, but this
Sure.
this has legs.
Yeah.
This is
right?
different. This has legs. Having a powerful character, like when you go back and play New Game Plus, the likelihood that you're gonna finish the game on New Game Plus is pretty low.
Yeah.
Versus the original experience where you got the story and you got the actual meat, right? And what we are being delivered is the difficulty, the meat, getting over these issues that we have. And almost none of them are combat
Yeah.
Yeah.
or even combat related. Like, it has nothing to do with the swing of a hammer.
And that's really where, the mechanics come down to define play style. Because we talked about before, one thing I'm doing in this, and it's a modified thing I took from an old school blog, is how your characters gain power is going to influence how your players play.
Yeah.
So I defined a handful of categories of ways to get XP through gathering fame, through crafting things, through researching esoteric topics, to slaying monsters, to all these things. And there's a handful that they all have in common that were based off the kind of pillars of the campaign: finding out truths, surviving against struggles. And then they each got their own individual XP trigger. And then, if they do those, I give them XP. The bigger the trigger pull, the more XP they get. It's all nebulous, because one thing I was going to get at is this first campaign, starting these 10, 20, 30, 40 sessions, if this keeps going, I view it as kind of the writer's workshop. We're all smoking cheap cigarettes, trying to think up the next, line in the movie. And if this keeps going, then we could actually start fleshing out the campaign, because once you guys are kind of done with the grotto and Tarbuck, like, they exist in a void.
Yeah.
I've done no thinking outside of Tarbuck and the grotto, because I don't need to yet. I need to know where you guys are going to take the campaign. Like, I'm fully prepared in the sense for this to become a hex crawl, where you guys actually have a world and go out and map and explore. And that provides a lot of sustenance and pillars of discovery and agency, because it's like, you guys get to choose what you go do.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant about it, though, because the few times I've tried to do that before, you guys flounder.
Yes.
And you have no idea what to do.
That's
because
my biggest worry.
I didn't give you, some of it's on me, some of it's on you. But I think knowing that you guys are going to invest in this, and, whether or not your character survives, the longer you guys continue with this, the story and the narrative becomes more important than individual characters, right? And even if your character might die, you're happily willing to create a new one because you want to continue to be a part of.
I'm actually thinking
agency and whatnot.
about creating a second character,
which is
just
totally
so
viable.
this character can work on long-term research,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's dangerous going into a dungeon. He needs to literally sit some sessions out.
Needs to
so
be
he-
more prepared. Yeah.
So like, I'm already thinking of a fun secondary like character to like bring in, because that's ultimately I feel like we're doing a thing, and it feels pretty cool. I like the idea.
I also have to balance this with the legitimate aspect that one of our players plays because he gets to come hang out with us.
Yeah.
He for the most intents and purposes, doesn't really care what we're doing, what's going on. He's there to have fun. And it's very, ever rarely going to be more than that. And the other one enjoys it, but it's not important for him to be at the head of the agency and the narrative and pushing things forward. He's there, I wouldn't say along for the ride, but, he just enjoys being there and having fun, and, it's just not as sucked into it.
Yeah.
So I've got, on a scale from like you to Brian, wildly different players in their interest level, and trying to balance that is going to be a little difficult.
Oh, for sure. We as players, we haven't made things easy for you.
I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I want to go back real quick to how you've been giving out XP, in that you came up with a few pillars of the campaign. And I love that.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things so far, because, like I said, my character was essentially clean slate dwarf cleric, right? I'm here to exist and do the adventure. And yes, my cleric's been more fleshed out as we go on. But one of the things that really helped that and bring out the actual character in this dwarven cleric is the carousing that we've been doing. So we have a mechanic in which you can earn additional XP by carousing, and also by exploiting these pillars, right? My pillar happens to be fame. I chose fame as mine. And I did that on purpose. And that was because I felt that was maybe one of the more dynamic choices as far as the choices go. Thinking that this is how we involve the townspeople. And that, for better or for worse at this point,
is working.
is working.
It's working.
Yeah. Because, when as far as my carouse goes, my ability to gain additional XP while during times of rest.
Gone medium.
Well, it's been interesting, the first carousal, because the carousal can come with XP gains and also dire consequences, right?
With it, much like with anything, big risk, big reward.
Yeah. And it's big reward, certainly. Yeah, I at least one level so far has been attributed completely to this, this carousing system. The fame one is fun, because one of the things that I've been doing in order to gain XP is talking to the townsfolk and discussing our exploits in this dungeon. And that's caused some issues in this town. And this is all Nick's doing. This comes from Nick's brain. One of the first consequences that I ran into was my holy symbol was stolen, or it went missing. We don't necessarily know that it had been stolen, because we never figured that part of the plot out. But figuring out, at that point, we had a whodunit.
Thieves.
We had a how does this get fixed, right? And that was nearly an entire session for me, was figuring out this holy symbol issue. And what ended up happening, instead of finding the person, was we made additional friends, essentially, met additional characters along the way that were willing to help us because they had heard of the exploits that we'd been, of our exploits in this dungeon.
Boon and a bane.
Right? So that's really cool. I like those tie-ins. And now what we're dealing with right now, and have been for multiple sessions at this point, is again the consequences of my carousing.
It's a very the carousing, again, very nebulous, just a half-baked thing, and I will over time find a better way to do it. But it works for the purpose that I want it for. And it was, again, risk and reward thing, right? It was important for me when I pulled out this being tried for murder thing, right? I had to immediately, as you made that roll and you failed the really high level roll, I'd ask if I have this idea that Andy's going to get in a lot of trouble, that is going to necessitate multiple real life sessions in town.
Yeah.
Do I want to do that for both real life reasons? Like, am I prepared to run town stuff for the whole time? And also, how's that going to affect the plot of what's going on in the dungeon? Because it's very important to me that all of the major players and factions in this world, like the people who stole Brian's wine or the people who stole your thing or what's going on in the dungeon, they're all doing shit.
Yeah.
Time is passing.
Yeah. And that's been really cool is like things have changed in the town as we've been going back and forth in this dungeon. Yeah, that's cool.
So I think it was a good balance where I'm like, I'm going to throw a situation at the players that could get Andy either, a worst case scenario killed, or at the very least imprisoned so that he can't play him. Because I need to find a way that I can impart upon you that this carousing system is supposed to be extremely consequential at the high level rolls.
Yeah.
But also in a way that's going to be fun to play out.
Yeah.
And being framed for a murder is a really fun way to play.
So far, it's been very successful because this is probably the most fun plot point for me, at least. Even though it means that I play a lot less. Like I've been in a cell for 2.5 sessions so far.
Yeah.
Right. So my play is extremely minimal. The input that I can give our other characters, I have to limit because they're not talking to my character, right? So I can't actively influence what they're doing. So even just my chat has to be kept to a minimum. And I've been enjoying the fucking shit out of it. It's a really good plot point that I've been enjoying a lot.
Yeah. And yeah, Josh has got his fingers in a lot of pies. And like you were saying, it's kind of overwhelming how successful your character's been through good choices and sheer dumb luck.
It's just sheer dumb luck.
And yeah, I mean, when you combine that with the kind of nebulous idea that you want to try something else on the meta player level, it makes sense for him to be like, okay, I'm going to take a break from going into the fucking deadly ass dungeon where we died just accidentally doing things not even in combat to maybe just write some books.
So far, the deaths of characters have
setting
been
off a trap and choosing the wrong way to handle it, falling
2/3 of deaths in this dungeon have been essentially your fault.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to put it that way. But yeah,
because Andy died in combat. That's okay.
Yeah, though that's
you also saved Brian's life.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
That is fair. I forgot.
You would be dead if you hadn't remembered that you had actually taken a rest and healed a few hit points.
Yeah, I would also have been dead. So
you killed Russell.
I did.
And
no,
and you killed Brug.
I did not kill Russell.
How did you not kill Russell?
Russell killed Russell when he threw the torch into the flammable gas.
The gas wouldn't have even been present if it hadn't been for you.
Yeah, we also could have just moved away from the gas.
You ran toward the gas. You ran toward the gas.
An interesting, difficult choice. To get to this trap or this potentially treasure, you had to cross over a rickety grate over a pool of acid. Yeah. And you guys knew that there was a chance that too much weight on this grate was going to collapse it. And God knows what that acid's going to do to you. There's animated skeletons swimming around in it, right? So when that gas went off, you guys had to make a split-second decision, and you didn't have time to communicate.
Yep,
so you get into a bit of a prisoner's dilemma. Do we all try to save our skins and run away, and the combined weight of our bodies maybe break this grate? And Adam had that problem. He's like, you guys all decided right at the bat we're running, and he was like the last one. And he didn't necessarily want to be the one to break the thing, so he had to think of a split-second thing. He's like, maybe if I burn the gas out, it won't kill me.
Yeah.
And I think it was a brilliant play.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
It didn't work out at all. But that's because the trap was not based around him.
Yeah.
The trap exists in its own vacuum.
It just existed.
And you guys were the ones to come interact with it. Yeah.
Now, I'm willing to take 50% of that death.
Okay.
Was it you that triggered the trap? I can't remember.
I with magic opened the fucking mouth of the gargoyle thing, the full bust. Never trust the full bust. And opened the bust's mouth and poison gas started.
No, that wasn't that. No, that's not the full bust.
That wasn't the full.
That wasn't the full bust. No, this was just a decorative mouth on the wall.
Yep, and
here's what's great. And I really love this. And Adam, my brother, who's playing Russell, the one who died due to the poison gas trap, points this out in chat that because he chose not to run on the grate, the way I rolled to see if the grate would hold up, if he had, his weight would have triggered it and you all would have fallen in. And there's a really good chance the whole party would have died.
Yeah.
So that's where that kind of Dark Souls pillar of triumph comes from, is that, he might have died and it's unfair that this trap went off and could have easily killed all you guys. But through sheer luck, he managed to essentially, by proxy, save you all.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and that's not going to happen in a campaign where
Adam's a hero and
superpowered
Josh is a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You're right. That's what I've been saying all along. You're right. That's 100%. No, I'm still blaming Josh. You know what? You're not fucking smoothing this over, boy. Dude, you didn't even check that thing for magic.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Doesn't work all the time.
You are the goddamn wizard, and I have to constantly look at you like, what are you doing?
I mean,
check for
high
magic.
Intelligence, low wisdom, right?
Yeah.
He's playing.
I am often doing my own thing.
I know you are.
Because everyone else went in there to search for Vecna. I came to look for weird things in a cave and magical items. I have now found all of those things. So yeah, like honestly, my character he already feels like he's.
Nah, I love your character. Like as much shit as I pretend to fling at you, I love your character.
He's awful. He's awful. But boy, is it fun to play an awful, smart, fucking.
I personally enjoyed. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
so much. Your character and Brian's character went to the sheriff to essentially give you a report on what happened in an attempt to help Andy from getting in trouble for this.
And
murder.
we haven't this as far as the summary goes. We haven't gotten this far, so this is a little
kind
bit
of out of context. But what's important is them going there and attempting to explain they have this plan to help give Andy some ammo that he's not the one at fault for the murder. They made everything worse.
Yes.
And they made everything worse because I didn't hold any bars on the sheriff's capacity to use leading questions and to pry for more information. I played him as an intelligent man, and I could have played him as a bumblefuck, and they might have done a great job.
And the shit of it is that line of questioning got him so frustrated that it got taken out on me during my line of questioning. That carried over.
Satisfying.
If I had not been questioned right after you guys had been questioned, it would have probably been a little bit different.
And I did that because that's how things can happen.
That's how things go. Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes the truth doesn't come out, and shit goes south for either bad luck or intense or actual intentions and purposes. And
no, I greatly appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm excited for this next session because we're going to wrap up the trial. And you guys, I've given you the opportunity to save Andy's skin. And it's literally coming down like a dramatic 24 style moment where if the rest of the group is able to do this thing, they'll have, perfect proof that you're fine.
Oh, right? Good.
But that depends on if they do it.
I know. I'm really glad I have to rely on these guys.
I'm talking about because they might not know.
Odds don't seem good.
There are a lot of ways this can go down, and I don't predict necessarily that you're going to be found guilty, but it might still happen.
Even here's the thing, though, is being found guilty is pretty bad, right? At the same time, it's not like I can't later be found innocent, right? Yeah. Like it's not like additional evidence after the fact is going to go nowhere. Like, this isn't America. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I still can't be freed. We just have to try harder. Right. So, I'm having fun with it. Even though I stress the importance of this trial going right, I know that if it doesn't, that's not necessarily the end of my character. Right. Yeah. So I'm just really looking I am really enjoying myself and really looking forward to the outcome. Yeah, because it's like waiting weekly for my new show.
Exactly.
In this arc, I want to finish this arc.
A show you have control over. Yeah. Going back to talking before we wrap up, the idea of fleshing this world out and starting to set stuff in stone, I really, really like. I am awful in a lot of ways at world building, and I'm really good at coming up with the most small scale, minute details. The other day, I got on a bender reading about specific types of dessert foods, and I found out Eastern Europe, it's common for them to use silver or gold leaf on pastries and certain things. And within 20 minutes, I'm like, well, it's clearly that the high priests of Dwarven society are called Agrians, because Agri is like a silver thing, because they have silver skin, because they take silver sacrament on their religious food, and they eat actual like colloidal silver. And that's why if you see a blue-skinned dwarf, you know that they're highly respected, venerated up. And like that's the really small scale stuff that can add a lot of flavor to a world. But that stuff's useless in a campaign if I don't know if the campaign's going to go anywhere, if you guys are playing dwarves, if you're going to go to a dwarven kingdom, you know. So yeah, if this does keep going, and regardless of what happens to characters, we take the time to actually make it into a hex crawl and start exploring the place. I would love, you know, you guys are more than welcome to create lore and add stuff. It'd be really great if we ever get it going on like the stream. The audience could do so as well. You know, I am by no means the master author of these worlds. It is a shared, joint creation.
A shared vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amongst friends.
It is not your world, brother. It is our world.
So we do need to wrap up, but real quick before we do, I do want to mention real quick, I think next week we should probably continue with a summary of our campaign so far.
Okay, sure, yeah.
We might do something more official, get something like written or at least logged, a sequence of events. That would be important because one of the ideas that we're mulling over right now is figuring out, technically speaking, about how to either live stream or record our sessions, so we can stream them to you guys, or at the very least, put them out on YouTube in a more short form factor, for you guys' enjoyment, if that's something that you'd be into. So again, in this podcast, I know we asked for your input for Video Game Tango. We would really greatly appreciate your input for balcony time, and let us know if a long form D&D session, like weekly or semi-weekly, would be up your guys' alley. Like if it's something that you're interested in, I think we might do it anyways. But if your guys' interest is there, then I'll really hurry it along. So there's a lot of technical hurdles to get over as far as making this like a watchable, like a decent watchable stream or, you know, recorded format. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I will make it of the utmost importance if you guys are into it.
Yeah.
So please give us your input. VideoGameTango.com. You can leave us a voicemail or a comment on YouTube.
Excellent late Christmas present for us.
For sure. Yeah, big time.
Love feedback.
Yeah, and we love the voicemails. If you go to VideoGameTango.com, you can just leave a voicemail. There's a little microphone icon in the corner of the screen.
Can't explain how tickled pink it makes me.
I know, dude. When we get to do a fucking voicemail on the podcast, it's just that's elating. So yeah, if that's something you'd be into, please let us know.
Weirdly, he doesn't turn that color of pink by tickling him.